On behalf of Rebuilding Your Life Radio and the Train Your Brain, Claim Your Power calls, I'm your host, Susan Sherayko. Welcome.
We're going to be speaking with author Terence Dingwall today, who has written an autobiographical book. It's autobiographical in nature, but it's made up of many stories that come close to a time period of probably 100 years. He starts with stories from his family back in the 1920s, and then comes across time to the present day. Just as a note that as a listener, you may have stories like that you have been thinking you wanted to share with the world. So if you'd like help exploring that possibility, or on some other dream that you may have, I'm going to give you something at the end of this program that you can use to take you from your first action toward your dream right away. As I mentioned, Terence Dingwall is joining us from Australia. He's a motorcycle enthusiast who spent 20 years in the Royal New Zealand Air Force, and he is the author of 2 books, The Tome of Ding and an offshoot, The Tome of Ding Poems. So in these books, Terence is sharing his life stories that began in the 1920s, his time in the Air Force, and finally to his very adventurous life on a motorcycle that continues to this day. So let's put our hands together to welcome Terence. Hello, Terence, welcome.
Good day.
You know, am I correct that the Tome of Ding was your first book?
Correct, yeah. Guilty, Your Honor.
Okay. And why did you call it The Tome of Ding?
For a one-fingered typist, a tome is a very large book. Think of the old medieval Bibles that were chained to the church.
And how many pages is The Tome of Ding?
About 500.
Wow, that's a long book. I gather your family history covers a rough period of history in there, the earlier portion, from the British colonials, who they were considered British colonials, but this had some impact on their life and where you lived and whatnot. When did they migrate? Where did they migrate from, and to where?
My father's parents migrated from Scotland and went to Mauritius, and then further on down the track ended up in the Seychelles. My mother's great what have you, shot off from France, I think, at the time of the revolution, and shot off to the Seychelles directly. So the family is literally half Scottish, half French.
Okay, and then what happened to your parents once they went to the Seychelles?
My grandfather on my father's side was a shopkeeper, and my grandfather on the mother's side was actually a jeweler. So there's sort of like different strains of the family doing different things. But you make a business out in the sticks in the islands, miles from anywhere. You got to be pretty good at what you do to succeed, because there's not much there really. Sort of you're dealing with a tropical country. You're dealing with things like coconut copra. You've got vanilla. You've got exporting dried fish. Dried fish from my granny in Africa, in a sealed, what do you call them? A sealed with lead solder can. So yeah, if you literally hacked open this can, there's this beautiful smell of dried fish all the way from the Seychelles. So that's how we got our dried fish.
Now, they didn't stay in the Seychelles forever, though. Where did they go next?
Well, my father's brother had stayed home during the war, and he went eventually to Kenya. and told my father when he came back from the war, there's a good life there if you work hard, if you want to make something for yourself. So the Seychelles economy hit very badly by the war because all the shipping had been stuffed up by all the disruption from the war. There's artificial vanilla available, and all sorts of artificial stuff was, sisal was being replaced by nylon and things like this. So he went to Africa and got a job on a farm as a farm manager. So a farm manager comes mechanic. So he's a jack of all trades and a master of all, as far as I'm concerned, and made a good living there. But in those days, the Kenyan economy was going through a bit of a change because that had been similarly affected by the war, and they sort of like moved from farm to farm as the family grew. You needed more money, so you'd ask the farmer for a wage increase, and they'll say, "Well, you've already done your good things for the farm, but you can go somewhere else and do good things for others." And so forth. You move up the ladder, and so we moved 7 times.
Wow.
That's between the 1949 and 1964. So it's a lot of moving, but when you're a child over there, usually sent to boarding school because the farm is miles from anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and the boarding schools sort of like were expensive. So more ching money, and with 6 children in the family, there wasn't much to go around. So you had to make do with what you had, and I've learned to use my imagination, and it's kept me sort of sane, let's call it, all these years.
Yeah. Now that was a very challenging period in Kenya, wasn't it?
Well, in those days you had the colonial change from a representative parliament. They had something called Legco over there, and the Legco was made up of about I think it was 12 Europeans and about 3 Indians and 1 African. So they wanted to change it by increasing the number of Africans to better reflect the change in the population. When you had let's call it 7 million Africans and about 300,000 Europeans, the dichotomy is quite unbalanced. So that was what the change in administration occurred due to the Mau Mau rebellion, which was sort of like let's call it a freedom fighter movement, they call it nowadays. And so the establishment was reluctant to face change. So this thing went on from 1952 to about 1956, where you had thousands of British soldiers, you had the RAF out there, you had bombing the forests where these guys were hiding, and basically sort of like a mini Vietnam War going on in Africa. And in the end, when you look at it, the people got their way actually literally through the ballot box. And when independence came, they voted. They stay in the Commonwealth and become a republic. But what's it called? The people who fought against the Mau Mau, the security forces, basically because there wasn't enough soldiers to go around. Because at the same time, Britain was fighting a guerrilla war in Malaysia, mm-hmm. and in other places in the world, even places like Aden and Syria and things like this. So the country became independent, and the government became a majority ruled by the African people. And so we sort of like thought, well, since Dad had been co-opted into the security forces as a reservist, his name was on the blacklist, which meant that it wasn't like a blacklist you might think of as being so, someone's going to come around and cheerfully murder you in the night. Their version was right. You're in the security forces. You can take 400 pounds and leave, and you leave your farm, your car, everything behind. So basically, you're sent out destitute unless you get out and find a willing buyer. No one's willing to buy. So we said, well, let's get out and move somewhere else. So we wanted to go to Australia. My uncle, who moved up before, he'd actually sold his farm and got out before the emergency thing had occurred. And settled down in Australia in Bathurst, had a farm, was all happy as happy. And he took all his farm machinery with him, took all his tractors, took everything with him. So he was literally welcomed as literally a farmer waiting for a farm.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't some sort of destitute refugee saying, here, give me some money so I can get stuff.
Right.
Okay, so he'd done the right thing. But for us, we couldn't get into Australia because in those days they had what they call the White Australia policy. And they sort of said, oh, no, but you're a colonial. You're not white. You came from the Seychelles. So we were sort of like, well, what can we do? So, well, if we go to England and join all the other Yugoslavs and Greeks and all the other people who've been displaced by the war and say, yes, I'm willing to come and work in Australia and I'm white with white descent, you were just one of the crowd. But there was no guarantee that you'd get that application accepted. So we literally said in the end, okay, let's go to New Zealand instead. And New Zealand didn't have a sort of like let's call it a non-white ban, for a better way of putting it. And so we settled in New Zealand, and the family ended there with £10. Basically, spent all our money on getting on the ship and getting us across. So we landed on the Saturday. On the Monday, my elder sister, my mum, and dad were all working. So that's sort of like since then, the whole family's all got their own houses, all settled down, all worked hard, and basically sort of none of them ended up on the dole doing nothing. And so we made a good life.
It worked out. Yeah. Now I know you're in Australia now. How long did you stay in New Zealand?
We were in New Zealand from 1964 till 1989. Well, me, 89. My parents came over to Australia in 2000. So there's a bit of a change in welfare for old age pensions like this. In Australia, it's a much better system. So they sold up and moved over here. But my dad couldn't get Australian citizenship because they changed the laws in about, let's call it 1999, whatever. It's one of a better. There's a year that they changed the laws and said you couldn't get Aussie citizenship from New Zealand, even though you got New Zealand citizenship while you're living there. So when I come over, after 2 years, I applied for Aussie citizenship, being an Aussie. But for them, he applied and basically he got his citizenship on his deathbed.
Oh my!
Yeah, that's have to have the Citizenship Act read to you literally on your last day on Earth.
So what kind of work did you wind up doing?
Oh, well, always been a bit of a tinker with things electronics. So I played with radio when I was a boy and created my own radio, which disrupted all the TVs in the neighbourhood. So this guy rolled up one day with an axe and put an axe through the bloody thing. And that was the end of my little effort. But I thought, well, I'll keep going on this and joined the Air Force as a radio technician. So fixing airplane radio was taught to me. And then later on, I moved to electrics, radar, instruments. And so I became a more broadly educated technician. And in the end, it's sort of like, let's call it a jack of all trades, is the best way to describe it.
Okay. Now, at some point in here, you decide to write your book, or something happens that makes you decide to create a book?
Well, I was in the Air Force. I was posted to Singapore for 2 years, and in Singapore it's a bit of a different world. And for the first time in my life, that I'll keep a diary. So I have this little squinty diary about the size of it, the size of this camera.
Oh,
And just writing that, my little weird incidents that went on in a foreign country, because there's always strange things going on. So from that became the core of, in the year 2012, when I retired finally, and got my old age pension from the Air Force again. It meant that I could literally sit down and do what I wanted to do without worrying about work. And so I started writing then, and it took me till about 2017 to get the thing together. That was the first book. And writing an autobiography, you write about the things you know. You write about the stories your parents told you. So the problem is, I expected my dad to live forever, and my mum to fall off the perch. But it happened in the reverse direction. My mum was the one who remembered everything, down to the last detail of bloody everything. And she died first. Dad sort of like, it's been very hard to get stories out of him. The war had seriously damaged his PTSD, let's call it. His ability to remember, his wanting to remember, still upset him a lot. So when a child comes up to his dad and says, Dad, how many Germans did he kill in the war? And sort of, shut up, damn kid. Eventually you mature enough to start realizing, shit, it wasn't a good thing. The war wasn't just popping away everybody, knocking off targets on a range. It got to me when Dad gave me a gun one day. He says, "Here we are. We just stop on the road. There's a buck over there. It's sort of an impala buck. Among them, all of them." He says, "Well, pop one off." And I look at them and say, "They're beautiful animals. They're beautiful. There's no other word for it. They're works of art." And I couldn't do it. I just, Dad, I don't want to do it. I've been popping off, little pest birds on the farm for years with my air rifle, little fat pigeons and little hawks that are chasing after the chickens, but quite different. There's an animal that's doing no offense to me. It's no threat to me. And like I said, I just, I thought, no, I don't like that. I'm not. Dad can bring home the deer meat, and I'll eat it. But it's like when you go down to the piggery and say, "Right, here's the knife." Look at you, I'm not going to do that. So I like my bacon.
Right. So you had so much material. I'm talking about going back so many years to include all the things that happened to your parents as they came through all these different countries and situations. How did you decide to format it more like a diary?
Well, it's when you write something, you write on the paper. You just get an A4 book. I'm just literally that was what you sort of maybe just the memory of the moment. You write it down, and okay, I'll just pick something out of the air. Last week we went and did some meeting with one of the family we hadn't seen for years. So we went out and had dinner. So you write down. We went to the Greek restaurant, had a marvelous meal. One person had the trots from it, and no one else did. So what did they eat? Well, I didn't eat, and little things like this. You sort of you write down in a nutshell all the incidents. The thing is that if someone asked you that about 6 months down the track, did I go? Yeah, we went to a restaurant. I think we went to a restaurant. How many of us were there? You sort of you lose that memory unless you write down the core occurrences. So remembering things for me is I'm terrible at names. I get introduced to 12 people, and I know that face, know that one, know that one over there. Let's say again. You told me his name last week. What is it? You know, so usually sort of like, g'day, you know, and sort of, hello, Terry, how you going?
Yeah.
Just fumble your way past and hope that it's...
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So when did you wrote the full book, which is the hundreds of pages. When did you get the idea to create 3 smaller books?
Well, the early part of the book is sort of like very pedantic because it sort of describes what goes on in a small island. There's not much happening. Then you sort of got the war going on with Dad, so I dragged out of him very reluctantly. And then they got stuff from Mum, which came in screeds. But if someone is not family, that's, if I say boring as batshit. If for a member of the family, yeah, might be riveting. But for someone else, I said, yeah, okay. Then I come to my Air Force stuff and the motorbike stuff and all my motorbike chapters. Yeah, why did you bore us with all that stuff in the beginning when you could have, you know, just literally dove into it? And I said, yeah, you're right.
Right.
So I've stuck poetry everywhere because poetry just happens to be something I find comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So the book's got poems stuck through it. And I thought in the end, I should really put all the poems together in one lot. Counted them, there's over 80 of the bloody things. So I thought, oh Christ, better make a book of poetry. Then I better do something with motorcycling. So I'll literally slice and dice. Very similar to when you look at Lord of the Rings, you've got the 2 towers, the Third of the King, whatever have you. Each one deals with a sub part of the whole thing. So if you're not interested in all hobbits, you can more, you know, war with orcs and shit, but you go and look at the volume 2 or volume 2. So that sort of thing. The separating it into bits that are more easily absorbed by a category of people, then you name it after that category. So when I put
I mean, it's like having a target audience, Terence.
Yeah,
you're
so
looking at a target.
Yep. In front, people with motorbikes might be interested.
So maybe, well, we are interested. Did you pick out a couple poems that you would share with us?
Yes, I did. You got to sort of look at each poem has a specific subject, a specific idea, and it dives quite deeply into that particular subject. So for your entertainment, I can pick. I got one here called Mother's Day.
Okay.
I love my mother very much, and it's a fairly long. So if you don't mind, I'll just scrub through it.
Mm-hmm.
Mother's Day. I first reached out in wonder to suck upon her nipple. Heard her heartbeat thunder as warm milk flowed in ripples. My fingers felt the texture and the fullness of her breast as she laid me on her stomach in a greedy, gulping fist. My body thrilled and trembled at the softness of her lips. I felt I was in heaven when death dangled on her hips. She helped me get my back legs to go the same direction, to get to where my hands went, the place of my selection. Ups and downs were tragic, sounds her loving, helping hand. I thought that it was magic, when at last I found I could stand. If I fell upon my ass, or chanced to skin my knee, her caresses and her kisses would set all my troubles free. I got so close to crying till she pushed me on my swing. Then I thought that I was flying at the giddy, swooping flings. She answered all my questions as fast can be. Mum said it was like using a spoon to fill up the sea. She helped me learn the ABC. I almost came a cropper, till that thrilling day came as I wrote my name on paper. We counted thumb and finger to set upon the path, to fumbling my way forward at understanding maths. She said, pout your lips and pucker, just like nibbling on a thistle, till at last a wondrous moment when I found I could whistle. I lost the wheels of training and found the sport I loved, listening to her puffs and straining to balance on my body. It almost had me crying as I faced first day at school, till her quiet voice beside me said, The uniform looks cool. Whereupon, so whenever I was weeping in deep and dark despair, her loving arms were reaching to show me love and care. Why is it such a wonder when we kids reach high school? To be seen out with your mother, your friends think it's uncool. It is only nature's cycle. It just happens to us all. We forget our many foibles and our mum's love don't recall. We think that all that's new is so much better than the old, that the loving little kid she knew is now to her so cold. The rising generation say their folks know bugger all. It's the same across the nation, the teenagers' siren call. Not till we've become a parent, after many years have passed, does the real become apparent of what is a mother's task. You will have to stand in her shoe to help a child of yours. You will only lose your arrogance if you can show remorse. On the day you say you're sorry to the mum who loved you long, he just smiles and said, don't worry, I also once was young.
Very nice. Those memories from your very, very early childhood, I'm amazed you remember them.
Well, my mum remembers, and she tells me.
Okay. Okay. There's the key. Those are such intimate details about things that I just can't imagine children were aware of that. So thank you for the secret. Your mom remembered.
Ask your mum, she'll tell you.
Yes. What did you bring from your Air Force days?
Well, comradeship is the right word. When you have 3,000 people all working together in a team where you all have to trust each other, absolutely. And you've got some idiot in the plane getting in there saying, yes, I trust that Terry, he's done the work right. The wings aren't going to fall off when I take off. Well, when he can trust you that much and he goes up, well, what we used to have was a very cunning scheme in the Air Force. The guys who worked on the airplane, they invite them to come up with them on the test flight. Come with us, Terry, and if the wings fall off.
Did you pick a poem from that volume?
I can. I'll just quickly that big one up. I just kind of select the damn thing from more things. Okay, here's one called the Joe Room. The Joe Room is the little room in the hangar where you sort of go and wait for your plane to come in flying.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place at which we gather when our asses need a rest. It doesn't really matter, the whole setup looked a mess. Though the couch is battered with half its cover ripped, if I tell the truth, it was rescued from the tip. The fridge is leaky, old and rusty, and has a dodgy door. Carpet is all threadbare, with moth holes by the score. The pin-ups on the walls are faded by UV from the sun. Likewise, the ancient comics with half the covers gone. The speaker to the line hut was already old in World War II. Roof still has the soot stains from the old Billy spoon. It's a quiet room for tired lads, their tired souls to rest. To joke and laugh the day away, it surely meets the test. If walls can speak of brotherhood, of mateship and of pain, they could tell 1,000 stories, crack bad jokes once again. It's where the young and ignorant could learn a sense of pride, transforming into teammates who stood strong side by side. We could touch on any subject of pride and of remorse. For in these walls were trusted mates who listened to your voice. If you won a game of buckers or had cause to celebrate, it didn't change your status. These guys were all your mates. At any time you needed help, felt sad or wanted cheering, the jokers in the Joe Room with jokes would have you grinning. It all came down in spades amid the smiles and corny jokes. You really were good mates with all these girls and blokes. When the voice came on the speaker, the planes were approaching fast. We all got off our asses because our Joe time rest had passed.
Cool. I like that. There's something about camaraderie that you've spoken of a couple times in terms of what it was like to be in the Air Force and do that work. What about motorcycles?
Well, I can dig you up the things of motorcycles too. Let's pick one motorcycle. It's called Hell's Angel.
Oh, okay.
Bob's engine blew up in a thick cloud of smoke. On his way to the Rockfest, he was a sad bloke. But Mario's bike shop was just down the road, so he opted to push it. It didn't need to be towed. They just said, just leave it here. You don't need to worry. So Bob to the Rockfest, then left in a hurry. Way down in the valley, loud rock music was belting from the old woman group, the Sisters of Satan. Bobby had heard stories. Friends all swore it was true. These girls who'd do anything, with birds or with dudes. Young Bobby got lucky. 5 girls who were bent on showing him heaven in their communal tent. Early next morning, he crawled out of the sack, left totally exhausted with a bloody sore back. Back on the hilltop, the bike shop awaited. To pay for his repairs, our Bobby intended. But Mario was waiting, looking most woebegone. For the previous night, Bob's bike it was stolen. With no papers signed, it was all true in this instance. Bob had no insurance. Mario stoutly insisted. But just down the road, the 2 poor Bob's group. Angelo's Bike Hire, a sign carved in relief. What a coincidence. There was a bike there, just like his own, our Bobby could swear. With shining new paint, fresh, clean and white. Angelo's Bike Hire, decorated both sides. To go for a test ride, young Bobby mentioned, but to come back and pay, he had no intention. Bob failed to notice in his hurry to take it, fresh paint had trickled onto the shoes of the brakes. Off down the hill he went at top speed, but stealing his bike back, he was doing the deed. His speed had built up, going well past the ton, till at last he intended to try to slow down. He pulled on the brakes with might and with main, but paint on the brake shoes made his efforts in vain. At the base of the hill, a bonfire was burning. At the speed he was doing, with no chance of turning. In a shower of sparks, and fire and smoke, he lost eyebrows and hair and most of his clothes. His skin, it was black with soot, with ash, as through the inferno he passed in a flash. As a tent stopped the bike, his eyes were all red, with the smoking remains of the hair on his head. Right into the tent of the Sisters of Satan, there rode Hell's Angel, the sisters were certain. For the fire and flames had torched off the paint, excepting one word in grey letters, quite faint. The word it said angel on the side of the bike. As the 5 girls awakened in a hell of a fright, Bob chased them screaming in this painful disaster, but their bare ears departed, darting faster and faster. Where the Sisters of Satan had gone is a mystery. As for poor Bob, his skin is still blistering. It said on this day a new girl group formed, who sing gospel songs like Christians reborn. So if your prized bike should depart in the night, see Angelo's Bike Hire. He'll soon put you right.
That is an adventure to have that. That's just a visual. What a wonderful visual of seeing him go down that slope, completely out of control, no way to stop, and go right into a bonfire. That's pretty wild, really pretty wild. So when we spoke before, you told me there are different kinds of bike groups that you participate in. That there's some that are very, you have different places they go to or different kinds of things they do.
Well, the people who are loving bikes are very similar to people who love cars. You've got sports car enthusiasts who sort of like polish up their their cars and get out on the racetrack and burn rubber all day. And the other ones who polish their car, sort of open the garage door a crack, and if there's a drop of rain or dust inside, they close it again and say, no, I won't go out. And I belong to one mob of each type. So the Macquarie Towns mob, and they're per se nice, lovely blokes who love polishing their bike within an inch of their lives. And heaven help the factory if they come along and say, wow, this is better than I left the factory. It's so clean, it's unbelievable. When they have their show once a year, there's over 100 bikes from this group, and people show their bikes off with great pride, and they have prizes and everything. The other mob, they get out on the road, crash the ass off their bikes, and I try desperately to keep up with them.
That's is there yet another group? I mean, does the price of the bike matter?
Not really. It's really to do with a mental attitude. If you're participating and doing something on the road with people who've all got similar bikes, similar performance, and it's your skill that keeps you in the running. It's nothing to do with getting a super fast bike and just blasting off in the horizon at 100 miles per hour. It's just sort of like doing something with them, and everyone's got the same skill set. And for me, I've raced bikes for years, and I get out on the racetrack, and I'm not a guy who wins. I'm a guy who goes out and enjoys himself, but I haven't got the big balls, the desperation, the courage to get out there and put your life on the line and say, no, I'm going to win no matter what, even if I fall off and break my arms. I'm out there now, I'm enjoying myself, coming around. Best way to describe it. And having a day out.
That makes total sense to me. I wouldn't be out there trying to break my arms either. My claim to thrill is those domes that the motorcycles go around in. They're like 2 or 3 stories, and they go up and down at great speed. And I always remember how it disturbed me. They don't have any insurance because it's such a dangerous thing to do. So, that was my impression of motorcycles.
Well, I remember when I was a child watching, they called it the Globe of Death, a steel globe about 15 foot around. And basically you had 2 bikes in there whizzing around and doing horizontal and vertical stuff. But then they put the bloody lights up, and all you could see was the headlights. Whizzing around this bloody steel globe, and you sort of, what the hell? Oh, but I look back on it now with my knowledge. It's no different from riding on the road. You've got your headlight on, you know what you're doing. You're outside, obviously, these bloody lights going up and down and sideways. And holy crap! But when you know what you're doing and you're careful about it, and you've got a reliable bike, and you're literally working within your limits, fine.
It's a skill set, as you say. You develop. Yeah. So, with all this going on, where can people find your books, Terence?
Amazon, and let's get them up again. Just Book Trail Agency. So you can get in the form of an ebook or a soft cover or a hardcover, but all I can say is if you get the ebook, if you like it, get a hardcover. But if you're poor, it's there. So the price of a Macca's meal, you don't get a book. On your computer or whatever.
Do you read ebooks yourself?
No, really sort of like I've got a dumb phone. I recently upgraded to a smartphone, but it's been dumbed down to my level. I'm one of the old generation who used to pick up something with a bloody landline attachment. And, look, mobile phone, I can move it around in my arm.
We get used to those, right?
Yeah.
Well, Terence, is there anything else you'd like to add to your your tales about your books?
Well, every poem comes from a germ, comes from a spot in time and space. It doesn't come out of nowhere. The biggest worry when you're an author or a poet, should I say, is you've heard something from someone else, and unconsciously you pluck someone else's idea, someone else's turn of phrase.
Yes.
If you listen to how I talk, there's something, he's read bloody Shakespeare, he's read this, he's read that, because the group of words, the form of words that I use are reflective of my education. Some guy who came out of the blooming, let's call it sort of like a third world school somewhere with a bare minimum of English, but learned English as a learned language, using a dictionary, because my way of learning English, when I was small, I was only speaking Creole. Then went to Kenya and I had to learn Swahili, talk to the natives. Then I went to school, so I had to learn this third terrible language called English. So my method was to literally open a dictionary at random and learn all the words on that page every day.
Oh my.
So I've got words that sort of nobody uses. I've needlessly learned words like aphrodisiac and, whatever, and you're like, what the hell is that? And you've got the wrong word. But the intention was, I've got to learn this language to the extent where I become familiar with it and able to talk to people. So it's the only way I can think of it. And well, it worked. But in the Air Force, I was terrible, because every time I wanted to do a crossword, they banned me from the dough room. Dingbat, get out of there. We're doing the crossword. And they do the crossword and come back. Hey, Ding, we can't figure out this. I said, oh, yeah, that's funamble, yes. And how do you know that? It just means someone who walks on tightropes. Who the hell learned the word funamble? And the answer is me. And so, like I said, they banned me deliberately because I just do the crossword. And
too readily. Yeah, it was on the tip of your tongue while the rest of them are searching for the answer. Yep.
Yeah.
So
but
I get that.
Well, the world has got its revenge, because my better half is better at bloody crosswords, and she's a great player of we call that game with the words and the tiles.
Scrabble.
Scrabble, yeah. She's bloody
Yes.
Scrabble genius, instead of I'm always getting my ass kicked by her all the time.
It's good to have a partner like that. Well, I want to thank you, Terence, for spending some time with us today. Your stories are delightful. Let's remind our listeners that we've been speaking with Terence Dingwall about his books, The Tome of Ding and The Tome of Ding Poems, which are available on Amazon. I think you said Facebook, Ex Libris originally with the first book, and now Book Trail.
Book Trail Agency.
Yes, is that the
Book Trail Agency, Ex Libris.
And as we're going to bring this in for a landing now. So thank you so much for being with us. And to our listeners, as I said at the beginning, if you have a story that you want to get out as a book, or a dream that you really want to make happen, check out my course at www.dreamroadmap.com, and it'll help you get started right away. It's really the basics of how we build our dreams. So bye for now, and have a great day, everyone.